Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to this channel. Thank you to everybody who's watching. Thank you to everybody who has subscribed as well. News broke out earlier this week. The agent of Sipho Mbule as well as Rivaldo Coetzee and Mike McCabe confirmed that both players can join any club of their choice. There hasn't been any announcement yet from Mamelodi Sundowns in terms of they have left, but it seems like they are free agents at this current moment, and it caused a lot of conversation. The conversation being Chiefs should be getting these players. Chiefs should be signing these players. And I thought, okay, let's jump into this conversation. Let me provide my thoughts. I'd love to hear your comments. I read your comments, so please do not take that. Yeah, I do read. I'm not necessarily ignoring you guys at all. So let's start off with Rivaldo Coetzee, right? So I've written down a couple of bullet points. Written down some positives and as well as some cons regarding these two players as well. Number one, Rivaldo Coetzee, a good player. That's a very obvious one. He's a very good player. Started off his career very young at Ajax Cape Town, now known as Cape Town Spurs, and he was linked with a move to Scotland, and then eventually broke down. I think something about his medical. Been hampered with injuries, quite a lot. But then in terms of the positives that he would be able to bring to like a side like Kaizer Chiefs, firstly, he's versatile. He can play centre back, he can play CDM, and if you need him to, he can also play at right back as well. Another thing as well is that he's got a winning mentality. He's obviously come in at Mamelodi Sundowns, winning the trophies that he's won, so he'd be able to bring something along those lines, and also as well as CAF. Chiefs are going to be involved in CAF Confederations Cup. They would need sort of that experience of a player who's gone to travel and played on the continent as well. So he'd be able to bring that. And another plus side is, I know a lot of people talk about his injury proneness. Chiefs don't play the same amount of games as Sundowns does. They don't have sort of that history in terms of having to play the same number of games as Mamelodi Sundowns. So even though I saw he averaged 20 games a season for Mamelodi Sundowns, but it would be a huge plus at Kaizer Chiefs in terms of having to come in there and them not having to play the many games that he played at Sundowns. And also, the big factor is, I think Chiefs next season must be focused more on their league position and rather going very far in CAF. That's what I think. So I think for them, it's like try get that top four finish. That's what they should be doing. And the negatives I would probably say is that obviously it's the injury proneness, only averages 20 games a season, and also his wages. He's 28 years old. He's obviously going to be looking for a decent contract. He's obviously going to be looking to be paid really well, because it's almost like you would say he's edging closer to the end of his career. So that's probably like what you would say is maybe the con, in terms of he's probably going to have to be paid a lot more than what the players at Chiefs are already that are there. That's for sure. But when I look at the whole thing and I sort of assess the whole thing, I think it's a yes. I think it's a yes. I think Chiefs should probably take a risk on someone like Rivaldo Coetzee. Of course, he's got his injury problems, but the fact that he would be able to bring in a lot more, I think, in terms of experience, in terms of the way he plays, and also it needs a rejig. The club needs a rejig. So I'd probably would say sharp to Rivaldo Coetzee. Now moving on to Sipho Mbule. I had to think about this one. I had to think about it a lot. I did. I had to think about it a lot, because when you talk about the obvious things, he's a good player. No doubt. He's a good player. Talented-wise, he's very talented. You can see him and on the ball and all that stuff. And creativity as well is another plus. Kaizer Chiefs needs that creativity. They need that creativity. And I think he'd be able to bring in something like that. And also another positive as well is, just like Koutier United finished high up the league, and I think he had a lot to play within that. In the games that he did play, of course, there was a period where he didn't play, and he was sent back from his loan. But he helped out a lot, and he danced, he did his thing, And I would say those are the positives with regards to Sipho Mbule. Now, when I jump into sort of the negatives, reports of him off field, man, have come about quite a few times. You've heard reports when he was at SuperSport United. You heard reports when he was at Mamelodi Sundowns. You heard reports when he was at Koetzee United. So it's always like there's always a story that's there. There's always a story that is definitely there. And I also think of the fact that, like, Sipho Mbule, within his career, I think he stagnated. He could probably argue that he didn't get the chances at Mamelodi Sundowns to impress. But when I look at him and his development, he should have been where the Mukwana is. They started out together at SuperSport United or playing together at SuperSport United, and they both got the transfer to Sundowns. Of course, I think he came after Teboho Mokoena, but in terms of his career, it's sort of stagnated. It hasn't really necessarily moved per se, and one would argue that those off-field things are probably the reason why also that it hasn't moved as yet. His career hasn't moved as yet. He should have been within Bafana Bafana a number of times already because of the talent that he does have. It's undeniable. It's absolutely undeniable. And I think with all the positives that I did add with regards to Sipho Mbule, what would he do to a culture like Kaizer Chiefs? Does Kaizer Chiefs, they don't need sort of reports to come out. And whether people like it or don't like it, Kaizer Chiefs is more popular than what Mamelodi Sundowns is. So if he's going to like a Kaizer Chiefs, imagine the popularity he's going to have then. He's going to have massive popularity. He's going to have more eyes on him. He's going to have more friends. He's going to have more people trying to, take him out, take him this way and all that stuff. And he's 27 years old. Time is moving. It's moving, hey? Time is absolutely moving. And we've heard stories about a Zongo. We've heard stories about a Mambizela. We've heard stories about a Mahlambi, Pagaman Mahlambi, and what's gone on with their careers when they sort of make the wrong decisions. So for me, I'm asking myself, the talent, yes, I would love Kaizer Chiefs to get the talent. The talent without a shadow of a doubt. But the fact that there's reports at SuperSport, at Sundowns, and at Son United, there's no smoke without fire, ladies and gentlemen. There is no smoke without fire. So in terms of my verdict with regards to Sipho Mbule, I think what Nabi needs and what Kaizer Chiefs needs right now is somebody who's going to pull that club back to sort of its greater years that it once was. And I don't know if bringing in someone like Sipho Mbule who could cause something else, because they don't need that. And it's a shame because the talent, yes. The talent, absolutely, yes. Sign it as quickly as you can, definitely. But the fact that you've been to 3 clubs and already there's been reports, it's almost like you had your chance at SuperSport, you had your chance at Sundowns, you had your chance at Son United. They sent you back early before even the season had finished. So it's like, do Chiefs want to risk that? Bringing sort of that type of character in, knowing the popularity of the football club? I don't know. So if you had to ask me in terms of where I want Chiefs to get to, and also looking at the youngsters that are there, Shabalala, Duba, there's youngsters that are there that need sort of that guidance, So I want positive influence on these youngsters. That's what I want. So to finish off, I'll say yes to Rivaldo Coetzee. Take the risk. Do the things. Go in. Do whatever you got to do. Sipho Mbule, I'm going to have to say no. Yeah, I'm going to have to say no. I think Sipho Mbule could still definitely contribute within the PSL. I definitely do. But Sipho Mbule has to have a serious conversation with himself. He needs to get a mirror. He needs to really look at himself. And he really needs to turn around his career. It's running out. It's running out. You're 27 years old. It's running out. Before you know it, before you blink, it's all over. It's all over. And then all of a sudden, we'll see you on podcasts. So I would probably say for Sipho Mbule, probably at another club, cool. But in terms of where Chiefs are trying to get to, in terms of having to change the culture, in terms of having to do all that, I'd probably would say not right now. Nah, I don't think so. So let me know what you guys think. Drop your comments. I definitely will be reading them. Rivaldo, yes. Sipho Mbule, no. And don't forget to subscribe. Please do subscribe.